Yogurt, blueberries, granola, and herbal tea. I'm pacing myself. Did you guys have a break? Yeah? Yeah? Sarah, welcome. Veronica, it's so nice to see you. So glad you made it. I have to tell you something, an awesome thing just happened. Somebody in this room just went and bought a ticket to join us in Tower Bridge tomorrow. Am I allowed to say who it is? Kathleen, you rock. I'm like, Hannah, who's Kathleen? And then we realized what you just, oh, she's got the feather boa out for you, Kathleen. Brace yourself. You are going to be bundled when you arrived. Okay, that is adorable. So Jeremy's like, I'm not coming specifically because I don't want to be bundled. Don't worry, we check consent first. So this is Lady Rapson. Hello, Dolly. Where's Bubba?
He's with his childminders.
Is he?
Yes, he's a big boy now.
What a sensible boy. Maybe he'll vomit on her next.
Yeah.
There you go. Elaine Mack, we've never met in person either, have we? I'm really happy to see you.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you. Okie dokes. So this session is not about me. This session is about the awesome independent tutors. There has always been this double track in qualified tutor between the independent tutors, you know who you are, and the tutor businesses of every scale. Yeah. And it's really interesting how some people shift gears transition from one to the other, and back again. So I met with a tutor who's a really active member of our community last week, who told me that, oh no, I don't want to be pinned. What did you do that? Okay. Who told me that, I have to put it over my face. She told me that she had left the classroom, built a tuition center, her specialism is languages, and then scaled it, and then got long COVID and descaled it, and now is asking herself the question, does she want to continue working independently, or does she want to build up a team again? So the movement is really, really fluid. Sophia, you just told me that you're taking on initially one colleague to work alongside. Yeah. Can I just have a show of hands whether you are working entirely by yourself, please? I can't see all the hands. Lovely. And can you show me then if you've chosen to build out a small agency where you've taken on a handful of tutors that you know well? Yeah. And then there's that next level where you are recruiting at scale and at pace, taking on students way beyond what you could deliver in your number of hours in the day. And we will speak about those at a different conversation. This conversation is about those individuals who have stepped into tutoring, and we'll find out why in just a second. And we will explore stories, and we will explore challenges, and we will explore wins, because we are celebrating. I will remind everybody in the room that, Helen will remind, that you can all remind everybody in the room that the QT house rules are.
Oh, I'm not typing it. I haven't.
Go on then, spit it out.
Be generous.
Be curious.
Be curious, be generous, be reflective.
Be reflective. You've got to be quicker than that. Helen is quick off the mark, I'm telling you. Why are we curious, generous, and reflective? Because that's how we change ourselves in learning. Yeah, we learn new things, we share insight, and we let them change us. That's what I'm going to ask to do here. The structure for this panel, you guys have all been given a heads up to my very, very loose structure, is first I'm going to ask you to tell us your stories, and I will go through in sequence based on who's behaving nicely and smiling. And then I will ask you to share some stories. I want to know about those delicious, delightful moments. because they will share, they will trickle through and remind us all of each other's, of our own wins as well. And then I want to do that sort of, no, let's talk about the hard bits and what we've learned along the way. And you're going to tell those stories partly because it helps to say it, but also because you know you're not alone. You know that everybody's been through it, or they're just about to be, and that by sharing the tough bits, we're really doing each other a massive service. When I mentioned to you guys that I crashed last year, and some of you saw that very, very close up, I shared that really intentionally. I shared that because I don't believe that leadership is about faking it and putting on a sheen. What's the phrase? You know what I mean? An enamel, yeah, like untouchable. That's not what this is. You got to bring your whole self if you want to help each other. So let's go. Dee, would you mind telling us your tutor story, please, in 3.5 minutes or less?
Oh my goodness me. This could be a challenge.
No, it's such a good story, and you're such a good talker. Bring it.
Thank you. Well, I've been working as a tutor as my main income for 3 years. I took redundancy in January 2020, having been working for nearly 13 years at a maritime school, part of Solent University. And I was teaching maths and meteorology to Merchant Navy deck cadets and also to experienced seafarers who were looking to get qualified as deck officers. My first love is weather forecasting. That's the degree I did. I discovered I could be a forecaster in the Navy. They trained me. I worked as a forecaster, had an amazing time for 6 years. And then when I left that, I ended up on TV and local radio in the south of England, did that for 5 years. And then when that ended, the Met Office offered me a number of different options. And the one I chose was to go to the Met Office College, which is where I discovered my love of teaching and that I was actually quite good at it, Yay! Which is always a good thing. But that was 2.5 hours away. I had to live away from home. I needed to find something I could actually do where I lived. So I had the bright idea of retraining as a maths teacher. Have no idea yet still where that one came from. And I survived for 2 years in a mainstream secondary classroom before I had the opportunity to go to Warsash Maritime School and to teach maths and meteorology. And it was, here we are, round peg, round hole. And it was joyous for nearly 13 years. But life circumstances changed and I had to step away for the sake of my own well-being. And because I'd been doing little bits of tutoring all that time, it seemed the obvious way to earn a living, possibly. So I've been doing that for the last 3 years, only a small number of students. I've connected with a tutoring business. And in this last academic year, I've had up to 20 students through the week, mainly from lunchtime. Students in the Middle East, which have filled my afternoon slots, students from the UK. So I kind of work a slightly later day, midday till 7 most days. And then in the last 6 months or so, I've been working through another business and doing some work in the alternative provision sector. And I'm still umming and ahhing about how much of that and whether that fits with what I want to do. So yeah, that's my story. It's like a lot of people's. It's very different to everybody else's story, but I am getting so much joy from being able to work one-to-one with students, and I get up every morning with a spring in my step, looking forward to what I'm going to do. So what's not to love? I have no idea how long that took.
You nailed it. Helen, go ahead.
Okay.
Speakers, I just need to give you a heads up. You need to keep an eye on the chat because I'm giving you little cues. Go for it, Helen.
Okay, please stop me if I ramble. Hi guys, I'm Helen, and I would say mine is quite a personal tale, and it's kind of the good from the bad. So it does have a happy ending, but I had a long career as a secondary school science teacher for over 18 years. I was head of biology before I had my little boy. And I was always told, from observations, etc., that I was a good teacher, but I never really believed it or really felt it. Had the, the old imposter syndrome. And I'd say that I struggled probably the whole time, sorry, with feeling nervous, anxious, scared at times, and dread most days. Sorry, guys, I didn't expect to be emotional. And it basically wore me down. And eventually I broke. And I started to think that 30 teenagers in one room maybe wasn't that conducive to effective learning for most students, and maybe even for most teachers, but I'm probably just speaking for myself on that one. I had tutored quite a bit already, sort of just kind of ad hoc and quite on a casual basis in the evenings, and I absolutely loved that. I'd come home because I was going to students' houses. I came home absolutely buzzing, and I did toy with the idea of setting something up about 8 years ago, but it just seemed impossible. How would I earn a living from it? I knew it was what I wanted to do, but it just didn't seem to even exist, and it wasn't a thing. But looking back now, it's clear how wrong and naive that I was at that time. Then in 2021, November 2021, I'd got COVID, just kind of like everybody did, and I couldn't go into school, and it forced me. I was already feeling very, very stressed and very, very on the edge, but having COVID forced me to stop and reflect on actually how unhappy that I was. But I didn't know anything else. I didn't know any other career or what else I could do. It wasn't the school or the people or even the job, really. It was just kind of everything. The environment, I think, basically. And so I had some counselling. It really helped me to reframe things. And then January 2022, Love Tutoring Festival 2 came on my radar because I'd started to have a search around on LinkedIn, and that was probably the best thing that ever happened. I was sat there glued to every session, making reams and reams of notes, connected with everybody. So apologies for that. And I saw that people were already doing what I wanted to do. And it's that old phrase of if you can see it, then you can be it. And yeah, I definitely saw it there in January 2022. I watched Sharon Corley as well at that festival, and she was a huge source of inspiration. If you've not seen the Pit Pony video and you're in my kind of situation, then watch it. I enrolled for the QT level 3 course, which was absolutely fantastic. Again, I can highly recommend that. And then I've got Georgina Green to thank for, I had a really fantastic one-to-one session with her, and she mentored me through some of the initial steps in kind of setting up a business. And here I am now, just over a year, and inundated with students, and yeah, I couldn't be happier. So that's my story. Sorry for crying.
Okay, don't apologize for crying. Go back over the chat and see what we said to you. Charlotte, go for it.
I was going to be really boring and just go through, well, I was a teacher, and I've decided I'm not going to do that, because after hearing Helen, I think you want real experiences here. You can read about me on LinkedIn. You can read about my story. It was quite traditional. But I think what I'd rather talk about instead, seeing as this is a really open space, it's more about my journey in a different way. So those who know me will be shocked to find out that I wanted to be an actress when I was a child. Duh. And I did all the drama. I did dance, tap, ballet, singing, acting, did the whole lot, piano, guitar. I was that drama kid. And up until the age of 16, I had a plan. I was going to go to RADA. I was going to go to the National Theatre. I was going to go on stage and screen and win Oscars and this and this and this. But I had a meltdown at 16, decided I couldn't do that, realised I didn't have the personality to have the resilience to be an actress. And I literally thought, well, what the hell am I going to do? And out of nowhere, I picked teaching out of nowhere. I mean, looking back on it, I was always someone who was made to teach other people in school, you know, because I picked up things quickly and they said, go and teach them and go and teach them. So I suppose without realising it, teaching was in my background. And the only reason I went to Cambridge was I thought, well, if I still wanted to be an actress, I could join Footlights. And if I had joined Footlights, I would have met can't remember her name, Olivia Colman, and I would have met all these famous people, and who knows. But you know what? That wasn't my journey. I don't even think, the irony is I look back on teaching, and for 20 years, and I've never told anyone this in such a forum, 20 years of teaching was hell for me. It was really hell, because I don't think I fully knew that that's who I was and what I wanted to do. And I spent quite a lot of my adult life actually feeling a failure, because I thought my father was someone who always said, who literally, you signed up for something and it's like, oh, well, you'll have to win first prize if you enter that competition, or if you do this, you'll have to come top. And he was very much someone, he was big in business, and he was head of Southern African operations somewhere. And everything had to be the top. You had to be the top. Unless you were first, you were not successful. So as soon as I became a teacher, said, well, you'll have to become a head. You'll have to do this. You'll have to do that. And it was a very long struggle for me. I never fully felt like I fitted in schools. I did everything. I was a deputy. At one point, I was an acting head. I did this, I did that, I did the other. Never felt like I achieved anything. Obviously, looking back on it, there's lots I achieved. And one thing I will say is I don't regret anything, because I would not be tutoring now and doing what I love and feeling like I fit and feeling like I found the Charlotte-shaped hole that I've been looking for all my life, being someone who felt like a square peg in a round hole, literally most of my life. I wouldn't be doing that now, and I wouldn't feel so confident in myself about what I do and so sure and so happy as I would if I hadn't done all those things, because I have found the place for me. Tutoring now is what I love. In 20 years of teaching, I had 14 jobs. Now that tells you something about where I was at, okay? And it's been a really hard thing to admit that, you know what, it's not that there was something wrong with me, I just hadn't found my setting, okay? But I felt like for a long time there was something wrong with me. And it's taken 7 years of totally being in the SHIT, feeling like I'm in that place, feeling like I didn't know what I was doing, somehow making it work to actually be at the point now. And I have to reiterate that QT and some of the other available places for us is such a good place, and I'm so glad I found it, because I think, you know, in the early years of tutoring, the first 3 years I was very much alone, didn't know about some of the you know, communities, and being part of this now is like the cherry on the cake for finding the career I love, finally feeling like I've got something that I am in control of and feel good about myself and feel passionate about, and finding the people to do that with. So if you want to read the boring stuff about how I got here, it's on LinkedIn, it's everywhere. That's me.
That was glorious, Charlotte. Thank you. I'm really interested, and I'm not going to ask the question now because we'll explore it another time. Why tutoring gave Helen a Helen-shaped hole and Charlotte a Charlotte-shaped hole, and why that's inherent in tutoring is really interesting to me. Georgina?
Hi. Oh my goodness, I'm already blubbing listening to everybody else's stories. So there's a strong chance I'm going to join in with that now. But yeah, I love these stories. It's beautiful and it's nice. I think I've probably got a lot in common with them so far. Yeah, my background mostly was in science. I've always been interested in science because I love being able to learn about what's happening around me and why and how everything interacts and all of these things that you can't see that happen in the background. And so studied forensics, thinking that that was going to be what I wanted to do. Actually, the thought of being a forensic scientist is quite disturbing, so I got fully put off of spending my life at crime scenes, and instead had a load of jobs in different analytical laboratories for about 20 years. Always having a love of learning new things and sharing the interesting things that I found, and that just kind of meant that I ended up doing a different thing every few months in my jobs. I've always had quite a lot of empathy with if I feel like someone's suffering or someone's anxious or someone's not happy where they are. I kind of feel it with them, which I always felt was a bit of a weakness because it meant I was getting emotional over things that weren't actually my emotions. And then after quite some time, a friend of mine said to me, she was a primary teacher, and she said, I really think that you would be a good tutor. And I was like, why would you think that? Well, I gave it a go in 2012, and since then I've realised that she was absolutely correct, and thank you very much. Well, I've always found I had quite a lot of anxiety around doing new things, and being in new situations, and again felt like this is a weakness, and this is a problem, and I need to change that. But it's actually been really, really helpful, and it's helped me to kind of understand what my students are experiencing, and identifying where that anxiety came from has actually helped me to learn a lot better about why perhaps the things that I had investigated doing before didn't fit, and why this being a self-employed tutor and being able to balance things around how I feel each day and not having to be perfect every day is much, much, much better for me. I did, like most people around the pandemic, have that whole life shift where I was working in a laboratory, and I was also running a tuition agency with a team of 10 tutors, and I also at that point brought back in I like sharing interesting things that I've found, and brought in this community for tutors to share how to deliver their lessons online when they had to deliver their lessons online now, and didn't have that experience, which has grown into something that's well out of my hands now. It's got a life of its own. At the same sort of time, I found the QT community. I think Ludo contacted me and said, I think you might be interested in this. Come and have a look. And he was right. And probably like many of the people here, coming into that community, and as Helen said, finding other people that are doing the thing that you wanted to do, and showing you that it is a legitimate thing that you can devote your life to. It's not part-time activity for teachers. It's a valuable thing to offer, and having that acceptance, the way that everybody shares that I'm having a bad day, or I'm having these feelings, and it's not that you have to pretend that you don't and be okay, was really powerful, because it gave me a lot of confidence that there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. I'm not doing things wrong. I'm doing them in the wrong place, and I just need to do them my way. So it's made it a lot easier for me to do more things, and maybe feel a bit anxious about it, but do it anyway, because there's a whole community of people that I can talk to about it. It's fantastic.
Beautiful, Georgina. Thanks, love. Go ahead, Helen.
Yeah, you had me going earlier when you said Helen, and no, wrong Helen.
I think on purpose.
I have a different Helen-shaped hole, so just to add to the holes there, that's gonna.
There are a lot of Helen-shaped holes in tutoring.
Yeah, but we're all awesome, so let's go with that. Yeah, I guess I go back to growing up, not wanting to decide what I wanted to do. Teaching was not on that list. I am far too much like my mum, and my mum is a teacher, and I was absolutely determined at 16 that I wasn't going to be a teacher. You can kind of see how that worked out. I got through university, and then went and did my PGCE, but had to drop out at the very end in my last teaching practice because I developed ME. I saw an advert for a local tutoring agency in the newspaper. Yes, that was the days of newspapers, that were looking for tutors. I contacted them, and they were happy to take me on. And the idea was to keep my hand into educating, into teaching, with the aim of being able to go back into the classroom. Why would I want to go back to the classroom and all the stress and busyness and workload that comes along with that? So I picked up a bit. I did a bit of tutoring along admin work, and then got to having my own children, which causes enough chaos and having to work around them. So in that sense, I would not have been able to do what I need to as mum if I was in a full-time teaching position in the classroom. I just couldn't do it. And now they're getting older, and I'm less likely to throttle them, only marginally. I mean, they wind me up, don't all kids. But I'm now able to grow. I'm able to take on more hours. I'm doing some alternative provision work. I'm working internationally. I'm full and now setting up Osmond Education. And if anyone has any ideas in which direction I should go, I will take answers on a postcard, please. But I love seeing kids get it, and being able to work one-on-one with students and really go in and go, yeah, the reason you don't get it is because you've missed that bit there. And once you fix that, that means everything else drops into place. Really being able to target students one-on-one, which you just cannot do in the classroom. There are too many students, especially when they're teenagers. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. Helen, that little teaser about answers on a postcard, firstly, it's going to be a big postcard, but I would love to know at the end of this festival, just thinking about that intention setting that we did before, whether anything resonates for you and whether you actually come up with anything. Would you follow up with us about that?
Yeah, when I have an idea at some point.
I want to hear it. Awesome. Okay, Sarah Cavewell, bring it.
Okay, I'll try and match the energy. So I love teaching. I've always loved teaching. It's all I've done since I left university. I was head of English in a middle school and then in a prep school for the last 4 years. And it's all I've ever wanted to do. And I can't imagine ever doing anything else. So I left in summer of 21 to go it alone and tutor online. I was fortunate that in the pandemic, I was able to do online tutoring. So opportunities came from that. And I quickly realized that one-to-one tutoring and the progression that you can see is incredible. And it built from there, really. So I started off teaching a few lessons a week. And then it has grown into what it is today, which is I've got about 15 tutors and I support students globally, predominantly in the Far East. I don't really need to tutor anymore, but I love it. So I keep doing it because I don't want to hand it over to the rest of my team. And I think one of the kind of highlights that happened actually in the last couple of weeks for me in terms of, Helen, it was accidental to a degree. It all sort of happened. But I've got such a great relationship with so many of the tutees, to the point that one of the Chinese families asked me to be a guardian for their daughter while she's at school in the UK. And I think that more than anything really tells me the kind of the strength of the relationships I have with so many of my students. So now it is about where I can take the business and which countries I can sort of move on to. But I love it. And I think I'll probably be tutoring forever, even if I don't need to. And it is something that the rest of my team can handle. It's never something that I've stopped loving. So yeah, that's pretty much my journey in a nutshell. I'm conscious of the time. So yeah.
Glorious, Sarah. Thank you. Lauren. No pressure.
Hello.
She can go.
Yes, I know. I'm feeling a big bit of pressure going last, but it's great to be here and be on. For me, I think I've probably got a very different journey from most. So I think for me, teaching and learning has always been something I was interested in. You know, I was a child in the classroom that was like, but why? But why is that like that? And I think I drove my mum very much insane with that question constantly. But why? But why? But why? And I was never sort of satisfied as to things if I didn't fully understand them. So it sort of led me down the track of, I don't know why, Helen. That's a good point. I don't know why. What I actually want to do. And I really struggled at school. I wasn't, a successful student in any form. I struggled a lot until I had my tutor. And when I got a tutor, I thought, oh, this is a person that I can trust, that I can talk to, that isn't mum, that isn't a teacher. This is someone that I can trust. And what I really found was actually just how much power they gave me and how much I could do this and that I could achieve these things. And they were the whole reason that I managed to get into a place where I thought, right, well, actually, maybe university is a thing for me. So I went to university, completing my degree during lockdown, which came with horrendous challenges, very much on my own, very much lonely. And I'd kind of picked up tutoring family, friends, as I've kind of went on. And I went into my master's thinking I'm going down the corporate route. I'm going to be a businesswoman. This is life. I'm going to move to London. I'm going to do all of this. Went into my first job and I lasted 3 months. Hated every single second of it. Didn't like it. Was like, this is not for me. I'm not learning. I'm not doing anything. There's no development. So I thought, right, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to see if I can actually tutor full time. And my thoughts behind it was, I'll do it part time. And how wrong I was, how very wrong I was. So fast forward a year properly now, set up my business, run it one-to-one. I'm full. I'm just so excited. Every time I talk about it, I smile. The fact that I'm sitting in a hotel room in London, it's just incredible. This is something that I never ever would have thought I would have been doing. And my anxiety, I've had anxiety since I was probably like 5 years old. The fact that I'm sitting here with major anxiety just proves that, you can do these things. And I want to show my learners that you can do this. If I can do this, you can do this just as much as me. And everything that I do for them. Every time, it never gets old. Students coming to me saying, I got this, I understand this, this is why I want to do this. And some of the kids that I've got at the moment, if they're watching, keep going, doing what you're doing incredible. And I'm so proud of everyone on this call, and I'm so glad that I found qualified tutor, because as a not a qualified teacher, I think I would have given up a long time ago. So thank you.
Lauren, you're our win. You're just a win. I'm gonna ask you guys to just bundle in now with your wins, because I don't need to go through a sequence, and I'd rather pick up on, that makes me think of such and such. So panelists, if you have a win that you'd like to share with us, whether it's something that awesome that happened with, come on then, Dee, come on, don't be shy.
I am not shy, as you know. I have already shared this with a number of people in various places already this morning, but it completely made my year yesterday. A year 9 who I started working with last week walked through the door yesterday afternoon, and she said, Dee, I do not know what you did last week, but my brain has got bigger. And she plonked herself down, raring to go. And it was, oh my goodness, I don't know what I did last week, but if I can have that impact on one young person this year, then this in the whole of my tutoring career, then I will die happy. I will die ecstatic. The other one was another tutor I saw yesterday, who's gone from 48% on a calculator core common entrance exam maths paper a while back to 85% on his latest exam. Now, I know assessment is not everything, and again, I'm not sure quite what it is that I've done, but then the feedback that his mum gave me after that just blew me out of the water. So yeah, I don't like to big myself up, but those 2 instances in the space of an hour, wow.
That's awesome. We will take that and we will share it between us, because those moments are so precious.
Yeah.
Who else wants to join in? Go ahead, Lauren.
Yeah. So one for me that came off the back of what you're saying, Dee. I've got a student I've been working with for about a year now, and honestly, they are a different person to the person that I went into and met. They have, overcome things that I never thought was possible. They have done things well out of their comfort zone. Before, when I first met them, they wouldn't even sort of leave the house by themselves. They wouldn't go and do these things by themselves. They're doing all of the things. They're ordering coffee. They're going to talk to people that they never would have done, and they've got their place on their college course. And I'm just so proud. And honestly, I don't know what I did. I really don't know what I did. I'm a bit puzzled. I'm still trying to think about it. But I am so happy that I can just change lives like that.
I don't know what I did. I hope you get to a point where you do know what you did, because then you can replicate it. Sarah, have you got one for us?
Yeah, I think I was just pondering that. I think it's probably the one I mentioned earlier with the girl who I'm going to be looking after for the next 5 years, which is somewhat of a responsibility. And I was hesitant to start with, but I think the fact that we have that bond, and her mum says, she trusts me to take care of her child as, sort of as her parent. That is a win. But all the students that come over to the UK, because they all predominantly come from China and Hong Kong, even though they probably don't need me in the same way once they're here, they all want to carry on lessons, and all of them say that. And for me, that it's that connection. It's not the exam results, it's not the universities they go to, it's the fact that the confidence and the self-belief they have and the engagement they have with me and my team is it's those sort of micro wins, I think, on a daily basis. So yeah, I hope that counts.
Beautiful. Thank you, Georgina. None of my children, thanks. It's too soon.
There's so many. I have a student that I used to tutor from year 6 who, when I would turn up to do a lesson, she would throw herself on the floor and cry because she hated numbers. She's now done a biochemical sciences degree and is becoming a scientist, and tells me how much she loves maths and science. And one student I went to who didn't get along very well at school because he was quite autistic, but fantastic, an absolute phenomenal student, is now a member of my tutoring team because he's an absolute legend and has done an aerospace engineering degree. And then the sender of these lovely flowers surprised me today, because I just got this card saying the student who was her child, who was brilliant, I think he was my most capable student this year, almost quit his A-levels just before he started tutoring because he didn't think that he could do them, and I'm guaranteed he's absolutely smashed them. So I can't believe that he was going to quit, but I'm very glad that he did it and that he booked a tutor instead.
Isn't that amazing, all that relationship that's there?
Lovely.
Gorgeous. Also, it's like that idea that your students turn into your tutors is pretty unbelievable, isn't it? I was just trying to phrase something in the chat that I'll work out in a second. Helen, go for it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Oh, which Helen?
Helen Alderman.
There we go. Me, Helen. This Helen
Yeah.
shape, not that Helen shape. Sorry, I'm on one this morning. Too many cups of tea. Yeah, I've had a couple. It's on my profile. I think it's taking the student that comes to the first lesson and goes, I hate maths. Which I imagine many of you would have the same sentiment, because I've heard it from tutors as well as the students. I hate maths. To actually turning around and going, I love maths, I did it, which is always a great one. And I had an email yesterday, a couple of days ago, from an adult learner. So it's also important to think that tutoring doesn't just support students in school. This is somebody coming back round to do their functional skills to go on in their career. And he went, I can do fractions. And it was in capital letters because she hates fractions, absolutely detests them. We spent so many sessions working on it, but she's, I can do them. I did a bunch of questions and just got 2 wrong. It's like, yes. So yes, and I can't mention yours. I'm not allowed to mention yours.
Go on then.
Well, yeah, I got a thank you note from Julia because was working with one of hers who's had some real challenges engaging in school. But yeah, being able to pivot actually off curriculum, that's always fun, and go down the maths art route. Yes, there is maths in art before anyone goes funny, and really get him engaged and being able to function, even though he was struggling with school. Yeah, that was, and to hear it from Julia that it's still helpful.
Well, yeah, it really is a memory maker for him. That was a really healthy moment of like, we can step back and read the room and not just plow on with what has to be done. Thank you. Helen Reid.
Hello. Mine is a recent student who I've just finished with. So he didn't finish his year 13 because he really struggled with quite a lot of different mental health issues. So he didn't do his biology A-level in 2022. So his mum approached me to see if I could help from September last year. And it started off, she would drive him to my house. I don't really do students at my house, but this was one that I did take on. So she would drive him to my house. And he couldn't even get out of the car. He could not. most of it, I was scheduled to have him 4 times a week, and probably maybe 1 out of 4 he would actually make it out of the car and through the door. Often his mum would end up coming in and crying. She was crying, and then we got to the point in the last few months where he was coming to 4 out of 4. I mean, this is mainly down to him, I have to say. And he wouldn't do any independent work at home. He just couldn't. It's not that he didn't want to, he just couldn't. And yeah, by the end of it, he was doing probably the equivalent of like 20 exam questions a day for biology. Just, yeah, doing loads and loads of study at home, turning up every time. And yeah, I was just so proud of him. And it was just really nice to be able to support his mum as well through it. We had texts many times a day. And yeah, they were really grateful. But yeah, I mean, he did it mostly himself, but it was just nice to be there to sort of to support him and to witness that. So yeah, that's mine.
There's a real sense of privilege in that, isn't there? Like the real type of privilege of like, I am glad I was that person for you at that time.
Yeah.
Charlotte, will you round us off?
Sure. I think I'm alone, perhaps. I think Helen Reid, I think you do groups, don't you? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But so the challenge for me is always personalization, because I do work with groups. Some of my groups are quite big. Next year I've got some groups that will have 18 in them. Because I work with a lot of 11 plus preparation students and a lot of GCSE students. So the wins for me are about how I bring personalization to what I do, and it's about going beyond the exam prep. And one of the biggest ambitions I have for my pupils is that they develop a passion for reading. I know Sarah will light up at this point. And it is really important to me. I have always struggled with reading. It's a long story as to why I ended up doing English at university. But for me to really support children in not just reading because they have to, because they're doing exams, but to want to have that as part of their makeup, if you like. So I have lots of individual wins. I set challenges, we set all sorts of ideas to help children read. I'm actually doing some reading groups from September onwards, like book groups once a month for the children. But every time I hear that a child has got into reading, and it's happened several times now, it's a big task. I have 160 pupils a week, so trying to get them all to do it is going to be a long task. But you know, every time I hear of another child who now says, I love reading, and they start recommending me books and they start handing books to me for me to read, is a real win. And one of those happened recently, and now she is trying to get her sister, who also comes to me, getting into reading because she managed it and she loves it, and now she wants to get her sister to read more.
All the balls going out there, raising the tide. So the siblings are being affected by your input as well. I don't know if you heard, Andy Cope did a recording for us for World Tutors Day, and he said, and if you make things better for one child, then you're making things better for that whole family, and then you're making things better for the whole community, and really you're just improving the whole world. I'm like, yeah, we know. So I'm going to wrap it up. And we didn't get a chance to speak about reflectiveness, but the reality is we didn't need to, because every piece of that was reflectiveness. It will be really interesting to have another one of these conversations next year or going forward, because I think we're part of each other's journey now. And I think that that's part of our recipe to success. Hayley, I just have a memory that I wanted to share. So I have your permission, Kaylee. Are you there? Yeah. So Kaylee and I first met in LTF 1. She had a chameleon on her shoulder, which she mostly does. And Kaylee told a story exactly like all of these stories. And the journey of leaving early years and building a business that is now an awesomely impressive alternative provision, and having a baby and growing as a human is something that you know how, Helen, you said it's that privilege of being there at that moment for a person. That's what I'm feeling right now in all of these threads. And so I really, really hope that we can continue to lean into that. I am really excited to hear what Nicola has prepared for us, because I'm actually just going to switch hats now and turn into a learner, if you don't mind very much. I think it's really important to be able to sort of to give space for us all to bring our expertise. So I'm really, really happy that Nicola's going to have a chance to do that now. Nicola, could I trouble you please to introduce yourself? Because though it's slightly less polite, it'll be far more accurate. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's great.
Awesome. Okay. Hold on. Let me just thank my gorgeous panelists. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Georgina. Thank you, Charlotte. Thank you, Helen. And thank you, Dee. You guys are amazing. And thank you to the people who contributed in the chat, because the supportiveness that came through there was palpable. I'm going to actually use the interactive festival guide to ask you to tell us your stories and share your wins with us. So Jeremy, I know that you shared, and Elizabeth, you shared in the chat. Please do that, because we want to learn from you. Nicola, I'm going on mute.